All right, let's talk about a piece of tech you and I use constantly, probably without even thinking about it. I'm talking about natural language processing, or, NLP. Okay, so think about this for a second. You know how computers are absolute wizards with structured databases, right? They can zip through a billion rows in the blink of an eye because everything is perfectly organized and logical. But why is it that those same super powerful machines can get completely tripped up by a simple everyday sentence, we might say? Well, that question is exactly where NLP comes in. It's the solution. You can really think of it as the ultimate bridge, right? It's what connects the super logical black and white world of machines to our wonderfully messy, chaotic world of human language. So what is NLP at its core? Well, it's all about teaching a computer to do more than just, read the words on a screen. The real goal here is to give machines the power to understand what those words mean, to get the intent, the subtext, all the little nuances that we humans pick up on without even trying. And this really gets to the heart of the whole challenge. See, computers are built for structured data. They thrive on neat rows, clean columns, and super strict rules. But our language? It's the polar opposite. It's completely unstructured. It's messy. It's packed with slang, sarcasm, and layers of context. I mean, it's basically the difference between a perfectly designed database and a totally unpredictable, free-flowing conversation. So what is it, really, that makes our language such a nightmare for a logical machine? Well, it all comes down to one single fundamental problem. A very, very human problem. And that problem is ambiguity. Think about it. In a database, a query means exactly one thing. There's no room for interpretation. But in our language, a single word, a single sentence can have a bunch of different, totally valid meanings. It all depends on the context. And that, right there, is the massive mountain that NLP has to figure out how to climb. Okay, let me give you a super simple example to make this crystal clear. If I just say the word tie, what comes to mind? Exactly. You might be thinking of an equal score in a soccer match, or maybe the tie you wear to a wedding, or even the verb, like to tie your shoes. See, as humans, we use context to figure out the right meaning in a split second. But a computer? With no context to go on, it's just completely lost. So the big question is, how in the world do you teach a machine to navigate this sea of ambiguity? Well, the way engineers do it is actually pretty clever. They approach it systematically. They break language down into smaller, much more manageable layers. Basically, to solve the problem of unstructured data, NLP creates its own structure for language. It's like building a framework, a kind of step-by-step process for decoding everything, from the most basic sounds we make, all the way up to the complex stories we tell. And this framework, it's got 6 main layers that build on top of each other, starting from the ground up. So first up, you've got phonetics. This is super basic. It's just about identifying the individual sounds in speech. Then comes morphology, which is all about looking at the smallest units of meaning in words, like prefixes like un or suffixes like ing. Okay, so once it has the words, it has to figure out the rules. That's where syntax comes in. This is just grammar, plain and simple. How do you arrange words to make a sense that actually makes sense? And once the sentence structure is correct, semantics kicks in to figure out the literal dictionary definition of what's being said. But of course, we know that's not the whole story, right? Language is so much more than just literal meanings. That's why the top layers are all about context. Pragmatics tries to figure out the intended meaning, like, was that person being sarcastic? Were they telling a joke? And then finally, at the very top, you have discourse. This is what ties it all together, connecting different sentences to understand the bigger picture, the entire conversation. It's this whole stack, from bottom to top, that lets a machine go from just hearing sounds to actually understanding an idea. And as we get better and better at teaching machines all of these layers, it leaves us with a really fascinating thought to chew on. When computers finally get really good at understanding our language, the sarcasm, the jokes, the things we don't say, what do you think is going to be the most surprising thing they learn about us?
Something to think about, for sure. And it's a question we're definitely going to keep exploring as this tech keeps getting smarter.
Hey, if you enjoyed this little deep dive and found it helpful, do me a favor and hit that like button. Maybe share it with someone else who's curious about this stuff. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss out on our next one. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, stay curious.